Dick Schwartz, the reason I want to talk with you is because I facilitate conversations, and often difficult ones and conversations that we haven't had. Mm-hmm. And one of the main conversations that you do is with various parts of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And in particular, the critical voice, which I think is probably one of the most common conversations that people have with themselves.
That's right.
What would be a more fruitful conversations with our inner critic?
Well, most people dread their inner critic or depend on it. Like, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to perform, or I'm not going to work on my appearance, or something like that. Or I hate the way this voice is constantly demeaning me, and it just pulls me down. So either way, you're going to relate to it in an extreme way. And what we found by getting people into a kind of mindful place relative to this critic, so they're not either afraid of it or dependent on it, or they're not trying to fight it. They're just curious about it. When you get to somebody in place of just being curious about this critical voice inside, and you have them ask it a series of questions.
Such as?
So if I were working with you, Esther, and you wanted to work with a critic, I would first have you find it in your body. Most of the time people find it in their head. I would ask you, how do you feel toward it? You would say, I hate it, or I'm afraid of it. We would ask those parts to give us some space to just get to know it. We're not going to have it take over more. We're just going to try and help it maybe even change. And we can't do that if you hate it. We can't do that if you're afraid of it. So see if they'll give you a little space. Then I would say, now how do you feel toward it? We'd do that until you could say, I'm just kind of curious about why it calls me names. At that point, if I then say, I'd like you to ask it why it does this, and what it's afraid would happen if it didn't do this to you all the time, and not think of the answer, but actually wait and get an answer from it, you would learn that it's trying to protect you. And it's afraid if it didn't ride you this way, you would either do something that would make you look bad, or you wouldn't try hard at something, and it's young usually, and it just doesn't know what to do to get you to behave other than to yell at you. And it remembered how you responded to one of your parents, so it often will take your parents' voice as a way to get more influence and say some of the same things they said to you. And when you get that, you'll shift, and you'll actually have some, maybe even compassion for how hard it's working to try and keep you going. And you can extend that to it, and the critics will start to soften at that point. And then we can learn about what they're protecting and actually go to that and heal that, because they usually won't stop.
So I first locate my critic inside my body. I ask it to make space.
You ask the parts that hate it to make space.
To make space so that I can
get to know it from a place of curiosity.
And then I actually begin to see that it actually has a good intention.
You don't see that until you've asked it these questions, and it responds, and it'll tell you how it's trying to protect you, almost always.
That's a complete reversal already.
Complete reversal of what most people do.
So instead of thinking it's criticizing me, it's actually meant to protect me by being critical.
Yes.
Then I understand where that voice originated and who I'm echoing. Then
we ask, once we learn, okay, it's trying to keep you from being seen as a fraud, then we ask for permission to go to the parts that are still stuck in those scenes in the past and help them come out of there and unload all the feelings of humiliation that they carry. So that now, once that's been healed, the stakes aren't that high.
Can I do this alone?
Some people can do quite a bit on their own. Some people need a therapist or somebody knowledgeable about how to do this, just to get them to a point where they're in this curious, open-hearted place relative to all of this, and to keep the ones who are going to distract from continually jumping in. So at a certain point, most people can do it on their own after they kind of get the hang of it.
So the eight C's that you have,
Yeah.
the 8 C's vis-à-vis my critical voice
Yes, exactly.
are curiosity, compassion, care,
Confidence.
calm, confidence,
Did we do curiosity?
creativity,
courage, connectedness.
connectedness.
And when you
Perfect.
can do that with that critical voice inside of you, then you can actually stay in that place with person who's being critical of you, rather than react the way you react to this one inside. So it's all parallel for me. The way you relate to these parts will play out in the way you relate to people who resemble those parts. So, if your mother's still alive and she's still doing this to you, you used to hate her or you used to fear her, and now you can just be, I'm curious, why are you calling me names right now?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.